Hi, this is Mark Spencer, the author of Ripple Training's Motion 3 Fast Forward DVD-ROM. In Lesson 6 of the tutorial, I showed you how to import and animate a layered Photoshop file to give your photos depth and perspective, much like the technique pioneered in the Robert Evans biopic The Kid Stays in the Picture. What I didn't show you, however, were the specific steps I used in Photoshop to break down the still photograph into separate layers that could be independently animated in motion. So in this bonus lesson, we'll look at making selections with the magnetic lasso tool, separating a subject from the background, making adjustments to the selections with Quick Mask, and using the clone stamp tool. Begin by opening a photograph in Photoshop. Here, I have opened an image I downloaded from istockphoto.com. In the Layers pane, the image is placed on a locked background layer, which of course makes editing difficult. Hold down the Option key and double-click the layer to make it editable. In the toolbar, select the magnetic lasso tool. Position your cursor on the boundary between the subject and the background. The icon looks like a tiny horseshoe magnet. Begin by dragging along the pixel boundaries of the subject. Here, I'm following along the woman's natural curves. As I drag, notice the border snaps to the edges of the subject. This tool is perfect for making selections on subjects with complex shapes set against high contrast backgrounds. Continue dragging while keeping your cursor following the contours of the subject. As you drag, you may find the lasso tool sometimes gets confused, but we'll deal with that shortly. Just keep your mouse moving for now. When you've made the round trip around your subject, click the first dot where you began to close the loop and create the selection. As you can see from the marching ants representing the selection, the bottom edge of the subject and the right edge along her back are not quite right. We'll fix this using Quick Mask. In the toolbar, click the Edit in Quick Mask Mode button. The image turns a magenta color. Pixel areas in magenta represent pixels outside the current selection. As you can see along the bottom edge of the subject, the magenta color encroaches on the subject and makes it easy to see the areas where the magnetic lasso tool got lost. We're going to use a brush to paint in the selection. Click the tiny arrow in the tool palette to switch from a black background to a white background. Then select the brush tool. Painting with white will increase the selection size, while painting with black will decrease the selection size. The brush is a bit small, so let's increase its size with a handy shortcut. By pressing your right bracket key repeatedly, you can increase the brush size. Conversely, the left bracket key decreases the brush size. Using the brush, begin painting out the magenta along the bottom edge of the subject. I'll do the same for the areas along the subject's back. Turn off Quick Mask mode when you're done to see the updated selection. As you can see, the selection is now perfect. The next step is to cut out the subject and place it on its own layer. Press M to switch to the Marquee tool, right or Control click, and choose Layer via Cut. In the Layers pane, you can see the subject has been extracted from the background and placed in its own layer. Now, click the eyeball to toggle the layer on and off. I'll leave the layer off so we can focus on the background layer. Because we can import and animate these layers in motion, we need to do some work on the background to hide the empty hole created by the extracted subject. A great tool for this is the Clone Stamp tool. In the toolbar, select the Clone Stamp tool or press S on your keyboard. From the Brush Preset menu, scroll down and locate a circle brush. Adjust the brush diameter and edge softness. I generally prefer a larger brush when cloning pixels with a wide, even distribution of color and contrast, such as the sky and ocean in this example. The softness of the brush helps to hide repeating patterns created by the clone process. You'll have to experiment with these sliders for best results. The next step is to sample the pixels you want to clone. Hold down your Option key, then click the image to create a sampling point. Here, I'm sampling part of the sky that includes the clouds. Move your cursor where you want to begin cloning, then click and drag. As you move your mouse, the crosshairs representing the sample point stays aligned with your mouse movements. Here, I'm sampling some pixels of the sky on the right side of the subject. Now, I'll go back to the left side and fill in the ocean. If you make a mistake, you can always press Command Z to undo and sample again. A real helpful trick is to hold down your Shift key while dragging to keep your mouse movement constrained in the direction you're moving to prevent misaligned cloning areas. Keep working until all areas of the subject are cloned to your liking. Keep in mind, you do not need to clone the entire missing subject, although you could do this if the animation you're creating in motion required it. Now, turn back on the subject layer. Notice I can now freely move the subject and she appears completely independent of her background. The last step is to save the file as a Photoshop document to retain the layers you created. You're now ready to import this file into Motion and begin animating in 3D. For those of you who are getting up to speed in Motion, this tutorial is a free companion tutorial to the lesson called 3D Photo Animation on our Motion 3 Fast Forward DVD-ROM. And thanks for watching.